Sure.
Okay, so we're watching Moms for Kavanaugh.
Mm-hmm.
It's right automatically protecting men. It says
Yes.
men of virtue. They went straight to that.
I know. And it's so masculine. All of this is so...
It's so masculine.
I'm not saying that masculinity is always bad, but the way that it's being portrayed is very...
I am innocent of this charge.
You must always believe the women.
Refuted by the people allegedly there. I may never be able to teach again. Totally and permanently destroyed.
Really? Yeah, it can happen to all 5 of them.
Oh my god.
All of them. Really?
Is that real? Like, that's not a joke?
This is Catholic vote. Wow.
I don't know. I found that on Twitter.
I don't even know how to respond to any of this right now.
I can't process.
This is real. This is real life, right?
Yeah.
I know.
I'm here right now. Am I here right now?
That's not like a blooper comedy. I know it's not, but
No,
like my head
like-
is like, oh, they're making a joke.
My head is hurting.
Yeah.
Because that's all that my brain can say. That's why people would make that. Oh my god.
This idea of like the world is against men is so interesting to me, because I'm
I
just
know.
like, statistically, do you like know what role and place you're in? I get that some men are put in some of these ways, and then for them to use honorable men, right? That same thing of like, you're seeing firemen, you're seeing lawyers, you're seeing
military.
like even from military, right? Like why would you do that? Like, really? Like that doesn't. I don't even know what to say.
I don't either.
I think I have words and then they just don't come out. So I'm just like, I don't know.
just have a lot of feelings. Well, hello you all. Welcome to What the Thursday. This week we are going to be talking about the decisions.
So what are the
The
decisions?
decisions are surrounding the Supreme Court nomination, the decision for Dr. Christine Blasey Ford to come forward with her story. This also reflects back to 1991 when Anita Hill came forward with her experience of sexual harassment from Judge Clarence Thomas.
Very similar story of being alone, right?
Yes.
And having to one person against another in this situation.
He said, she said, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into the testimony. You all watched it.
Yeah.
I just finished watching it again. What were your initial thoughts? Let's start with Dr. Ford.
I feel like hearing it, I guess I could feel, like, emotionally, like, how she was feeling. Like, I could empathize with her. And I also felt like that was a really hard place to be for her. At least, you know, like, thinking of it from her perspective, having to share her whole story with a boatload of people in the world. It's very brave of her to do that.
Yeah.
In the sense of, if I were in that position, you know, would I have the fortitude to do that?
Right.
I think something that came across to me that really resonated was just how human she was. You know, she started off saying, like, I'm terrified to be here,
Yeah.
but I'm here because it's my civic duty. It's my duty to this country to tell my story.
I think also what's interesting too is, and I always compare it to the Anita Hill testimony, is that, again, you felt a lot of the emotion, which is something that I think people see in women, but I think the genuinity, is that a word?
Authenticity, too.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm also just thinking to myself, she is a faculty member. I don't know if she's tenured or not, but I can just imagine, like, the impact of this being on her life. Like, I think we're seeing the other side of folks saying the impact of Brett Kavanaugh, but I'm also just saying, like, she has children. I don't know how old they are. She also has to stand in front of hundreds of students probably every day after this situation has happened. So, like, you felt all of that in her words. You felt all of her past. She said it happened in the 80s, right? So you felt all of what she's still carrying as if it just happened, right? And I think that's the reality of it, is that she's remembering only bits and pieces, But she's feeling it as if it just happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She's also
Yeah.
feeling the brunt of what comes with after testifying too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, she's refacing the trauma.
Yeah.
You know, she has to dissect what happened to her, and then the trauma of getting threats for coming forward. You know, worrying about the safety of her children and of her partner. You know, it's
And she also like puts up her story, and then she knows that these people will probably not believe her, you know, as these are just staring at her like, what evidence do you have? She's just saying like, this is what happened, you know? And the fact that people believe it or not does not change that it happened for her. And that's putting yourself in a very vulnerable position of, here's my story, because then people are going to do what they want with it.
Yeah.
You know, if you keep it to yourself, it's personal. If you volunteer it out, then that, you know, has a lot of consequences
Yeah,
in that
and
sense.
she's not just volunteering it out to her closest family
Yeah,
members and
no.
friends.
Right.
She's volunteering it out to the world.
The world, yeah. Because I think the other thing too is for the folks who are listening, right? The folks who are survivors. Because I know like I couldn't listen to it initially. I think I was kind of in and out of hearing her testimony because I'm just like, I'm not ready myself as a survivor to hear another story. And also just witnessing, even just being on social media, seeing the comments when it's live, like oh my goodness.
I didn't even look at the
The
comments.
live comments were like all over the place, and you know, some of them were for and against, and again, I get free speech, but the nerve of some folks to just be so blatantly evil, right? And I'm just like, for anybody who's ever went through anything, like half the time we don't have proof.
Yeah.
We know what we feel, and that's the biggest thing that you have is what you feel. And what happened to you, regardless of what it is. And for someone to be like, no, that wasn't my experience, that's a point. The key word you just said is mine. Like, that, you're right, that wasn't your experience, but that was their experience.
Yeah.
So then what are you going to do? How are you going to hear better? How are you going to listen in these situations? And so I also just feel like, and I'm curious in you all's like opinion about giving a testimony in that type of space. Do you think that it was harmful? Do you think it was helpful? Like, how do you process any of that?
Yeah, I think I'm still processing and unpacking it all. I think it's important for people, like, it's important for narratives to be told, and it's important for people to realize what experience people have. But I know for me, I thought I was prepared to listen to the testimonies, and I thought I was prepared. And then I listened to them, and I had friends reach out to me being like, this is really triggering for me. And so just thinking about the impact that it had, like, yes, I'm all for, we need to believe survivors and we need to hear their stories, and if they are comfortable sharing, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm also, we don't know who's experienced what and how that can be triggering to them.
Yeah. And I feel like, at least through the whole process, both the Anita Hill and the Dr. Ford one, it felt a lot like it is a political and, you know, law-like structure, because they need evidence and they need to choose a side when they were not involved. But then again, it also has the dimension of human empathy in the sense of, you know, who is this affecting and how this is going to affect survivors throughout. And, you know, people seeing this are like, well, if I come forward, then that's going to happen to me. If I come forward, nobody's going to believe me, even though this happened. And they just hold on to that, which is, you know, harmful in the sense of, like, you then let it happen again, or other people happen, and everybody's quiet about it, and nobody says anything, because then they're going to be like, well, they're going to ask for evidence and I don't have any, and the perpetrator walks free.
There's this fear of betrayal, right?
Yeah.
That there are these policies that are set in place to protect me, but I feel like if I come forward, nothing's going to happen, because that's kind of what we've seen as a precedent in our society.
Yeah.
And I think in addition to that too, right, because I used to hear cases like that, and how in which they went about probing was not evidence-based, and it wasn't survivor-centered in any way, right? And she even knew that, because she said it, right? Because she's what, a psychologist? Yeah. So she even said, like, like the cortex, frontal cortex, that's not how that works. And I was just like, like, I guess that makes sense. I had to go Google that. But I was like, that makes sense about how memory is influenced and impacted by trauma, right? Yeah. So, like, what do you expect? How much does someone need to give up to be believed? That was just my question the whole time of, like, if she were to be able to name the paint on the wall and the street that she was on
Doesn't make it any more
doesn't-
real than
right.
it happened.
And I'm just like, how much does someone need to give up? And I think as survivors, it's just like, you know, not only do I know, because I knew right when she opened her mouth that they are going to confirm him. Like, I just knew it. It wasn't even a question in my mind. But, like, not only is it, we know that we're not going to be believed, but the fact that we're also witnessing someone being brought to the stake to prove their experience is now going to shove everybody back who ever wanted to say anything in the first place, right? Because now I don't feel safe saying anything because this person is now worldwide exposed, right? And I'm pretty sure we're going to continue to see people peeling back layers of her life. I feel like it's not going to go away because we still talk about Anita Hill to this day.
Yeah.
So now she's going to be a part of that. Like, I feel like this pushes us back years at this point because I'm like, now this has happened twice in the same position, the same circumstance, the same methods of how they are going about it. I can't remember if they did I don't think they did an FBI investigation for Anita Hill.
But I mean, the FBI investigation that did go through,
That it wasn't.
It was just for show.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
And it's only and I think we only say that because they didn't do a thorough interview, and they were very clear that they weren't going to do a thorough interview. They weren't allowed to, I think, at some point, and then they were. So
yeah, they only had 7 days to do it.
Yeah.
So it took them 3, I believe.
And I feel like I want to bring up, like, kind of talking about, you know, kind of like maybe social structures in the sense of the Me Too movement and how people were coming out with, like, their stories and supporting each other, and then how we see the whole, like, social structure be, like, limited because now a person is in place in the Judiciary Committee that went on the other side of that social structure, and people are like, well, this isn't serving what we need in current times, you know, what people want and people are talking about. Like, the structures in place of power are different from what the people want, you know, and how does that kind of reflect back on survivors? Because they feel like people socially support them, but when they go up to, like, who's going to decide, they're not going to be supportive, and they're like, oh, that person's there, they're going to block everything I try to do because they're on the other side of...
Yeah, so it's that question of, like, on the individual level, I'm supportive, but when it comes to the system, I'm oppressed.
Yeah.
And I feel we're operating on a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Fear of what the future is going to bring, fear of it being too science-based or too feminine, you know, whatever that fear is. Because I'm just like, I can't imagine what 20 years from now is going to look like, right? Because, I mean, just even today, I didn't imagine having walking cell phones, right? Like, something that will fit in my back pocket. Like, truly, like, I was just like, this is not going to be a thing forever. Because I had, like, a gigapet, right? So... yeah, that's how old I am.
I make that face because I don't know what that is.
They're bringing it back,
like
though.
Tamagotchi.
Oh,
but
okay.
Gigapets was like a different...
Oh my
you
God. You
couldn't
couldn't have a dog or a bird.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it was,
like a
it was as big as the pop socket, and it was, and you had to feed
press these little
it.
buttons.
Yeah.
Mine always died.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep. And all you do is
Okay.
press the reset button, right?
Yeah.
And back, and it'll come back alive. But like again, I press the reset button a lot. But again, it's just like, what is this fear? And I'm like, we're seeing people evolve because they're now saying to themselves, this stuff happened to me, and I'm no longer going to let someone tell me it didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? When thinking about folks who are coming out and dealing with the fact of being LGBT and what does it mean to be out and proud, or you're seeing a lot of black trans or trans people of color being a little bit more vocal. They have already, but we're also seeing it evolve in our media, right? We have, what is that TV show Pose? So, like, we're starting to see these other narratives of people, and I think
I
it's
like that.
fear, right? It's fear of, like, what does it mean to have, you know, people out here who are living different types of ways, and
It
we
changes
are
our
moving,
structure.
We're moving away from the constitutional structure
And conventional.
And I'm like,
traditional.
I think they can both coexist, but we are just moving away from even trying to figure that out. And I think this really says a lot about where we are and where we're heading. And because I'm just like, people are completely, just like we talked about before, just polar opposite.
Yes.
And not willing to come to the table. Because we hear the word bipartisan, and I don't truly believing in that.
And I feel like
I
that
love to
divide
know.
is like what really, really makes it hard, because then people are like, oh, because they're changing, that means that my life's gonna change, and I don't want that. And it's like, let people do what they want, and you do what you want, and everybody respect each other.
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
I think there's also this understanding or fear or perception that when someone has views that are different from you, you can't connect with them. There is no way to make a connection because you voted for this person, you don't support me, you don't, or like because I feel like there's such a deep divide that even where we live in neighborhoods that are primarily voting this way or primarily this, or you know what I mean? And like part of that is redlining and part of that is due to the systems that are in place. But I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think all of this is perpetuating this culture of violence that we see, right? Like, no matter how much we can talk about active bystanders or talk about consent, like, this is what we're all swimming in right now. And again, this is showing where everyone is. Because now, like, I can't even turn my head without seeing, like, voter information and, like, believe survivors. You're just seeing that a little bit more on the lower levels, like, within the communities. But now you're seeing it kind of spread out because, like you said, the hashtag #MeToo movement. We also have violence against women that's coming back through because I got invited to like do a 5K run. I haven't heard those words in so long, which is also strange for me to say out loud, as I haven't heard those words. I feel like the #MeToo movement has been just the top of like what people know to be current. So.
And I feel like I like what you said earlier. I said I like it, but it wasn't the violence part. It was more of like that just because people don't believe your story, people are like, well, you're not going to tell me that it didn't happen to me. And that's empowering. Like for people to say like, well, he got appointed and people think they're not going to believe their story. Well, that's okay. I don't need you to believe me. I'm going to walk with it and I'm going to find other people who feel the same way. And, even though people feel oppressed by it, it also kind of has an empowering side in the sense of like, okay, well,
I know my experience.
Yeah. And I think you're starting to see a lot of communities build up, right? A lot of advocates are starting support groups. They've already had them, but they're probably being more diligent about offering it. I've also seen institutions where they've created some type of small minor term course for survivors to kind of work through what happened to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to get to, right? And I can only speak from my experience when I think about, the perpetrators in my life. I never have envisioned them going to prison, right? I know that is so far away and not possible for many reasons, right? And I just want them to understand and hear what they did, right? And I think being heard is the first step in my healing. And if you're disallowing these people to be heard, then yes, I'm going to keep walking around with this, and I'm also going to do other things, like tell other people and stand in front of a hearing and also continue to tell my story. And you see they're ruining their life. It's like, because you didn't hear me the first time, right? You did what you did and you walked away. And you moved on with your life. You went to a top institution and you were able to thrive, and then I had to find some way of doing that while being married with children and supporting students. Like, I had to do that. But you
didn't have to worry about it.
Right. Did you have nightmares? Did you have depression? Did you have nights, like, did you have days where you couldn't move, right? Because these things were just really impacting me, right? So I'm just like, for me, I'm like, I just want to be heard, and maybe after that I could figure out what I want to do. But because that has not happened for me,
and I think
that's the hard part.
A huge part of that is it's gaining back that agency that was taken away.
Oh,
right?
wow.
You get
It's a lifelong
so
journey.
powerful.
It's a lifelong journey.
It is. But it's by giving survivors the platform to tell people that their experience is valid and real, and the pain that they have. It's so important.
Not their fault.
It's not their fault.
Nothing they could have done any different, right?
Yeah.
Because you also have rape culture. That's a part of this.
Yes.
Right? That's
And the culture of violence and all of that stuff.
It's a part of all of that, right? So, it was interesting. Do you all watch Big Mouth on Netflix?
No.
A really good show, by the way. But I think it's unique because it is a cartoon trying to teach kids. I'm pretty sure kids are watching, but I've mostly heard adults watching it, which I think also does a good purpose too, because folks my age are having kids, and so you see these preteens, they're literally preteens, it's a cartoon, walking through the changes, right? When you start watching the show, it's the song I'm going through changes, because that's literally what it is, of them figuring out, like, you see them when the first time they're insecure, you see them trying to deal with their body changing, like one of the girls gets her first menstrual, and one of the guys is just like, oh, like, this is kind of happening to my body, I'm really wanting to go and do XYZ, and I know that I can't do it, and you're seeing them figure out, like, yeah, you shouldn't tell someone if you went and hooked up with somebody, you shouldn't go tell them because it's hurtful, but you see them dealing with it though, right?
Which
like,
is very
you're seeing
human.
them learning and making an effort to do better, because that's the thing of, like, I think with these situations, especially for the fact that they were so young when this happened, like, there was no way other than to start that accountability early of, like, you don't put your hands on other people, right? You don't invade someone's privacy. You should understand how your body works and how you should also ask for permission, right, and not take. But it's just like we have all of this kind of happening in addition to groupthink, in addition to culture and norming, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Green Dot tries to do, is to tackle that norm that that has just been in existence. But these students are coming here with 18 years of experience of either being told that they are allowed to do X or they're not allowed to do X. And half the time, it's none of it is on the same page.
Yeah.
Because you have students from rural places to
Cities,
urban
to,
metropolitan,
different countries.
You have students who were raised in a big family. Some students were single family households. Some have had a lot of maybe chronic illnesses, and you have additional pieces of all your social identities that play into that. It's a freaking garden salad full of like everything.
Yeah.
And so that disallows me or any of us to do our job adequately because we haven't even tackled the little stuff yet. Right? So we talked a little bit about believing survivors. So what do you see moving forward from this, right? Like we touched on a little bit of, we're seeing a lot of voting ads and things pop up on our social media, but what else do you see coming from this? Because I can't really get in the picture. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm getting very bogged down in the big system, the big like, just feeling let down personally.
Yeah.
And where I know I have control is how I react and what resources I put out there.
Yeah.
So for me, moving forward, I'm going to continue to be vocal about the importance of believing survivors, the importance of the work that I'm doing, and the importance of getting other people at my level, to learn and to educate people on, okay, well, how can you make a difference? What can those single interaction differences do to make changes in our greater society?
Yeah. I'm going to join you on that, Margaret, because that's what I was thinking too. I was thinking about, like, if Anita Hill hadn't come forward in 1991, would Dr. Ford have come out forward today? And that makes me think about, like, if I were ever to, if Dr. Ford and Anita put themselves in that position, I can do that too. In the sense of when I speak about my experiences, then I don't know what little girl is looking at me and thinking that, and having me as an example and allowing, what I allow around my surroundings and who I talk to and the way I talk about it too, in the sense of like, well, this is going to be hard and this is going to be long, but if you want to talk about it, I will, and I'm going to talk about it and we're going to respect each other and we're going to work through this till we may not be on the same page, but I'm going to talk about it. And that's hard and that's uncomfortable and people don't want to do that, but Dr. Ford and Dr. Hill did not want to do that either,
Yeah, that's real.
So that's where I think moving forward, at least personally.
You're gonna, and I think you're gonna see even more people
Do that.
use their voice because it's just like, regardless of how the situation just kind of ended, right, of Kavanaugh being confirmed, I still hear people say, like, no, this isn't right. Like, and the confirmation is what, hurts people, but I think you're also seeing how it played out for Dr. Ford, and that there needs to be a more deeper conversation about how those things come about. And I think for me, I've already made the choice to start talking to parents. I'm not a parent myself, and I can understand that there's a barrier for me, but I've worked with 2 organizations just within town to help just instill a little bit more education around some of these things so they can start to educate their kids as they're being raised. Because there's something called Erickson's psychosocial model.
Stages of development.
And so, like, for every, crisis that a kid goes through, whether negative or positive, it really affects and influences the next stage that they go through. And so if they don't start off, again, teaching them about their bodies, if they don't start off teaching them about boundaries or respect, in just small, minute ways, this is where you see folks kind of filtering in either of these categories, right? And there's more things at play that cause that, right? But this is where it starts. It starts in the environment, and how can we, on the grassroots level, we talked about that a few weeks ago, right? Like the grassroots level, address some of these things. And so I think for me, I'm making a choice to be a little bit more present in those areas as well, because I think that's super important. So I hear people say, like, how do you teach your kid not to take ownership of their bodies? And I'm like, well, number one, stop telling them to go kiss so-and-so, and stop letting so-and-so kiss them without giving them permission. Because there's so many kids that I met, definitely in my family, that's like, get out my face, right? And I'm like, good job. Like, you said, this is, my auntie told me this is my temple. And I'm like, exactly, this is your temple. You take care of your temple, right? But I even do that with my best friend's daughter, because I'm just like, you need to teach her some stuff, because she definitely deserves to know that she has agency and that she has a voice. And I think this whole thing of, like, we have a voice, so then therefore our voice is completely against the other. And I'm like, no. Like, if we stop doing this comparison thing, maybe we would feel a little bit better about the situation, but having a voice isn't a bad thing. Like, I'm saying no, that's okay. We want to the next person, right? And see if they are wanting to do whatever you're asking. But I tell people, use your words. Be specific. Like, don't be like, hey, let's hang out. What does that mean? Right? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Yes, we have to be very detailed, because it's too much of a loss that will happen if we're not. And this whole idea of, protecting men, it's a bad time for men, right? Okay, so if that's what you believe, what are you doing about it other than inflaming the situation?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? So can you teach them, hey, these are things that you need to make sure to do in order for someone to not accuse you, for them to not think that you did something to them? How about you teach them that? Then the other end of, like, be safe out there. It's a hard world for you. Like, that's not helping any. How about we just start telling people some stuff, so that
and acknowledging that, like, men can be victims of it
too.
Like, that's more important than, like, being falsely accused, that this can happen to them too. They're not exempt, and then it's even harder for them to come forward because they're in this male structure of masculinity that this can't happen to you. That's even worse. So can we, like, put attention onto that?
Right. And I'm like, we haven't even hit that deal, right?
It's another layer we need to go into.
I'm just like, and even when I say it out loud to some folks in trainings, they're like,
they don't buy it.
Right.
Like,
they're
what?
like, men get violated too? I'm like,
It happens.
That's a thing. It's like, well, I've never heard of it.
Well, exactly.
You're hearing it now, and they don't believe it's the statistics. But I'm like, I've met a lot of men who are primary and secondary victims of violence. Have partners that have been assaulted, and then them having to deal and support them through that too. So I'm just like, that's real. Like, I can't think of anybody I know that has never heard that this happens. So, any last thoughts?
Respect other people.
Respect people.
Yeah.
If you took anything from this conversation.
Empathy and respect. more than anything when dealing with others.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you're still trying to figure that out, right, what that means
Yeah.
for yourself, because I think everybody can say respect is so different. And,
Mhm.
and but universally, right, it's respecting boundaries, understanding that somebody has a different opinion, has a different experience than you, and just hearing them. That doesn't cost anything.
Mhm.
It doesn't cost you. I'm just like, what is the price of someone saying, hey, this is my lived experience?
And you saying, okay,
Thanks
Like,
for
thank
sharing.
you for
yeah,
sharing.
thank you for sharing.
And that's it. That's it. That's all. I mean, some people may want more than that, but I'm like, let's just start there. Let's just start there. So, good job. So, we have a few upcoming programs. Green Dot Week is next week. So, as you can see here, this is one of the many big
Shameless
flyers
plug.
on covers. Right. As you can see. So we have, starting on Monday, October 15th, at Parks Library Lawn. It's from 10 to 2 p.m. We have Green Dot Eat, so come and learn about how violence is connected to health and hunger. We also have Erica Hart on Tuesday. Also, definitely add Cyclone.health. Yes, on Instagram for Wednesday, we're doing Sex in the Dark Insta Story, which will be super, super fun. And those are confidential submissions through their Insta Story account, so definitely like them. What else do we have?
We have on the 17th, that same day as the Insta story, there's going to be a showing of The Witness. This is a documentary about the Kitty Genovese story. And so that will be in Parks at 6. Make sure to go there.
Food's there.
Yes, food
Good
and
food.
discussion
Yes.
and a movie. And then on Thursday, there will be a Be Well Hut activity called What's Poppin' in Your Mind, and it's going to talk about the connection between mental health and violence prevention, and just doing green dots in violence prevention, but doing green dots in mental health as well.
Isn't today World Mental Health Day?
It is
It
World
is.
Mental Health Day.
Yeah. I got a pop-up on my phone this morning on my meditation app, so I was like, wait a
Oh,
second.
what app do you use?
Headspace.
Me too! Download Headspace, shameless plug. Best meditation app on the planet.
But yeah, today's World Mental Health Day, so we'll be talking about that next week.
Yes, practice some
Yeah.
self-care.
So I'm definitely going to do that by going to get a smoothie today.
Yes.
Or a milkshake.
And then to round it all out on Friday, all week we'll have books displayed in the library. And these are Green Dot Reads books. And so the idea behind these is that there are books that, if you're wanting to learn more about Green Dot, about intersectionality, about trauma support and healing, about advocacy, this is just a whole big list of books that you can go and check out.
Yeah. Perfect. And then don't forget, faculty, staff, students, we have upcoming bystander training. So for faculty, staff, administrators, first one's October 18th, and then the student one for this semester
Is October 22nd and 23rd.
Perfect. Do we have any next week topics?
No, because we have Green Dot Action Week.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I was like,
So we might just bring you just a small featurette
yeah.
of
Yes.
what is happening that week.
Okay.
But we'll see
Yeah.
you 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us.
Yay!